One thing we both have in common is that we have a one another, or one another's. We all have people in our lives, family, friends, colleagues, neighbours. Who are your one another's? Who comes to mind for you? Now, perhaps it's a husband or a wife, or maybe a child, or a parent, or a sibling. I guess it's the people closest to you, and that's great. But it's worth noting that our one another's are more than just the people closest to us. They're also anyone we come into contact with. So that's the person at the checkout, or the person in the queue in front of us at the checkout. It's the person we walk past on the street. It's the person on the end of the phone when we call to make a complaint, or even the person who has cold called us. Our one another's are anyone we connect with, anyone we talk to, anyone we come into contact with, whether directly or indirectly. The anonymous or invisible person on the other end of that social media comment is a one another. So why am I going on about this? What's so important about one another's anyway? Well, did you know that the church is supposed to be the experts in one anothering? By the church, I mean you, if you're a follower of Jesus. We're supposed to be the world leaders in this. Now let's take a look at something that Jesus said about it. A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Now, Jesus is setting out the stall for how he wants his followers to behave, and he sets the bar high. He tells us he wants us to love one another. And the inspiration for how we do this, the measuring stick we use to see how we're getting on, is his love for us. We are to love one another as he has loved us. That's sacrificially, selflessly. I don't think he can be any clearer on what he's asking from us. But he goes on to tell us that this is what we should be known for. The sign that there's a church in a community isn't the building, it's not the songs they sing or the things they know, it's not their deep theology or programs or events or activities. Now that stuff's important, but it isn't what we should be known for. The sign that there's a church in a community is simply the way they love one another. Our main export to the world around us is the way we one another. Now, there's a couple of pitfalls in this verse that we can often fall into. Firstly, we think the church is a them and not a us. It's someone else, or at least it's someone else's responsibility. Jesus isn't talking to religious leaders. He's not speaking to ministers or vicars. He's not speaking to people who work for a church or who run a small group. He's speaking to his followers. He's speaking to you if you believe in him and follow him. So this is your responsibility. It's my responsibility. It's an us thing, not a them thing. Now, the second pitfall we need to avoid is thinking that Jesus is only talking about his followers, that the people we are to one another well is just the people within the confines of the church. If you want to know what Jesus meant by what he said, look at what he did. Jesus loved all people. He reached out to those on the margins, those pushed to the edges. He went first to the lost, the broken, the discarded. He told the religious leaders to stop looking inward and to start looking outward. The mandate he gave to his church was to be for the whole world, not just themselves. So the one another's we are to be known for one anothering is anyone and everyone. It's our community beyond the church, as well as our family within. And if you need more convincing on this, have a read of the parable that Jesus told about the Good Samaritan. Just Google it if you're not sure where to find it. The reason we're talking about this is because it was important to Jesus. But if we're honest, it's often something we struggle with or we forget. The events of the last 2 years have had an impact on our one anothering. We're still getting used to being around people. The way we connected and communicated with each other changed during the pandemic. And this would have had an impact on how we do this. So this series is all about helping us to recalibrate in this area. It's a nudge, a reminder about the call that Jesus has given us. What if our expression of his church was known for the way we one another? What if the community around us saw and heard the way we loved each other and they experienced and encountered this love too? What difference do you think that would make to our church, on our community, on you and your faith? I think it would be massive. The stuff we're going to look at in this series isn't just for Jesus followers. You don't have to believe in Jesus to one another well. You can apply some of these principles and values to your relationships and benefit from them. But if you are a Jesus follower, this is more than an optional extra. It's a command. If that's you, Jesus commands you to do this. I hope that causes us to sit up and take note. I hope it's enough to spur us forward. Now, in this message, we're going to look at how we love one another with our words. 2021 has seen a massive shift in the way we communicate with words. Digital communication has gone through the roof, but that's also changed our tone and our intention when we use words. We're shorter, more to the point, more direct. Our words can easily be about us and what we want to say than they are about the person on the other end. We are using more words than ever, but not taking the time to think about them. We send 320 billion emails, 6 billion text messages, 60 billion WhatsApp messages, and 890 million people log into Facebook every single day. Now that's significantly more than last year, and next year will undoubtedly be higher again. Our words are a big deal, yet we tend to use them so casually. We often forget the power that words can have. As a kid growing up, I was taught this rhyme: sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. It's another example of the lies we tell our kids. It's complete rubbish. I've broken my elbow and my hand and it hurt, but not anymore. I don't even have a scar from them. But I still feel the pain of some of the things that have been said to me. I carry the wounds that have been caused by words, and often they don't heal. They continue to cause pain years after they were inflicted. Now, King Solomon, who's often thought as one of the wisest people to have ever lived, said this: "The tongue has the power of life and death." He meant the words we speak. They have the power of life and death. You know this is true. You've experienced it. You felt the elation, the joy that comes from words. That positive, encouraging message that lifted your soul and made you feel alive. And you've experienced the opposite, the throwaway comment, the hurtful message that cut you deep, that infected you and still eats away at you today. Our words are powerful. They have the power of life and death. There was a wise philosopher who once said, "With great power comes great responsibility." It was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. If you have a tongue to speak, or a thumb to text, or a finger, if you still text like me, then you have great power. Are you responsible with that power? There's a riveting paper titled "The Role of Positivity and Connectivity in the Performance of Business Teams, a Nonlinear Dynamics Model." It's written by Marshall Lysander and Emily Heafy. The article explores the use of positive and negative words in teams, seeing the impact that they have on how well those teams perform. Now, they tracked 60 teams and discovered a ratio for the balance between words that created positive emotions and words that created negative emotions. They found that in the highest performing teams, they had a ratio of 5-1. So for every negative word spoken, there were 5 positive words. It was actually 5.6 positive words to every negative word. Now, mediocre teams had a ratio of just under 2-1, whereas low-performing teams had a ratio of 0.3-1. So for every 10 negative words, there were only 3 positive words spoken. Now, the point is our words are powerful. Solomon was right when he said that they have the power of life or death. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, Chris, that's all interesting and stuff, but I'm not a high-performing team. I'm me. What's this ratio got to do with me? Well, funnily enough, a guy called John Gottman carried out a similar study, completely unconnected to the one by Heapley and Lysander. Gottman was doing an analysis on married couples and the likelihood that their marriage would survive. He found that in marriages that last, there was an optimum ratio of positive to negative comments. Any idea what that ratio is? Yep, 5-1. Marriages that are built on this 5-1 ratio are far more likely to stand the test of time. Those marriages that ended in divorce had a ratio of 0.77-1. Our words have the power of life and death. They have the power to cause people to flourish or flounder, to make them feel valued or forgotten. Whether it's at work or at home, our words matter. And I think we could probably apply this 5-to-1 ratio to any sphere of life. As parents, if we want our kids to thrive, we need to ensure we're speaking words that result in a positive emotion. We need that in our friendship groups too. We need that in our church or our small groups. We need it in our sports teams, in our schools. Wherever we come into contact with someone, wherever we find a one another, we need to be aware of the power of our words. Now, Jesus wanted us to be known for being great at loving one another, and that includes what we do with our words. The expectation, the standard that Jesus has set for us is this 5-to-1 ratio at a minimum. But that can be quite difficult because most of us live in a world that doesn't follow this ratio. Open up your social media feed and scroll through. What's the ratio between posts that produce a positive emotion and a negative one? Turn on the news. What's the balance of positive and negative? Eavesdrop on a conversation. Are the things we talk about positive or negative? Are they life-giving or life-taking? Flick through your memory of the things said to you this week. What was the ratio? Think about the things that you said and be honest with yourself. What was the balance between life-giving and life-taking words? Trawling through the data of these studies, it seems the average is about 1 to 3. Our default position is to speak 3 negative, life-taking words to every 1 positive, life-giving word. Now that means that most of us have some work to do if we're to be known for how we love one another with our words. So if that's you, like it is me, here's 2 things I would love for you to carry with you that I think if we did them, we would change the tide in what we do with our words. Hold in, push out. This isn't something I've come up with. It's something Paul, who was one of the leaders of the early church and who wrote lots of the letters that we find in the New Testament, wrote. In a letter to the church in Ephesus, Paul says this: "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." Now, Paul encourages us, he challenges us to hold in anything that is unwholesome and to push out words that are helpful, words that benefit those who listen to them. What is your ratio of unwholesome to beneficial words? Paul isn't suggesting we follow the 5-to-1 formula. He's saying no unwholesome talk. Only speak words that benefit those who hear them. Now, what's classed as unwholesome? Well, the original Greek word that Paul used was a word that means decaying or putrid. It's dead words. It's the words that Solomon was talking about when he says our words have the power of life and death. So don't let words that tear down, that destroy, that infect or wound. Don't let words that take away life come out of your mouth. Hold them in. Now, we'll have to do this because we will still think them. We'll be tempted to say what we want to say. And some of us actually hide behind that. I'm just saying what I think. Please stop doing that. Please stop saying what you think. Now, when we do this, we're using our words to benefit us. We say what we want to say because it makes us feel better. You know, it feels good to tear a strip off someone with our words sometimes, especially when they deserve it. But when we do that, we're not known for loving one another with our words. We miss the challenge that Paul sets for us, and we break the command that Jesus has given to us. So hold them in, and instead push out words that are life-giving. Push out words that are helpful and beneficial to those who hear them. For some of us, this might actually be harder than holding in the unwholesome words. Our British culture isn't good at this. We're not good at being positive. We're good at being negative. We're good at complaining. We're good at talking about people and not to them. To push out words that are helpful, that benefit those who hear them, will require intentionality. It will require you to think about what the person in front of you needs rather than what you need. Now, that's hard work, but that's the challenge and the command that's before us. You might be thinking to yourself, well, that all sounds good, but does this mean I don't tell the truth? Does this mean I don't challenge or correct people? Well, no. The optimum ratio for positive to negative words is 5-1. The 1 is important. We need it. But this isn't about front-loading negative criticism with positive comments. It's not about saying 5 nice things before you say 1 bad thing. The 5-1 ratio is about emotion. You can correct, challenge, and even rebuke someone in a way that brings about a positive emotion. It's all about the emotion you have. It's about the intention you have as you speak. Are you using your words for life or for death? Are you intending to build up or to destroy? Now, feedback is a big deal. We need it in all aspects of life. It's something we talk about a lot with the team at FBC. Feedback helps us get better. We might not enjoy it, but when done properly, when done with the right motivation and intent, it's beneficial. Speak the truth, but do it in love. And by the way, saying to someone, "Can I say something to you in love?" and then tearing them apart is not speaking in love. It's unwholesome. It's not helpful. And if you preface what you say with, "Can I say something to you in love?" then chances are what you're about to say isn't in love. Everything you say should be said in love. So that's the challenge. Hold in and push out. Use your words to bring life, not death. Use your words to build, not to destroy. And I would love for you to think about one area of your life where you need to address the balance of the positive and negative words that you speak. Maybe that's at work or at home. It might be with your kids or your in-laws. It might be with a neighbour or even a friend. Address the balance. Hold in those words that are unhelpful, that are destructive, and push out the words that will build up and benefit those who hear them. And just imagine what would happen if we all did this all the time. We would be known as a group of people who love one another well. We would stand out from the crowd, but more than that, we would bring life. We would build. We would bring hope and joy. We would help people to be better. Your words have the power of life and death. Use them carefully.